Alright. Now this subject's obviously been pretty well done to death by now because this book series has been out for a while. It was published quite some time ago, 2005. Text copyright 2005 for the paperback. So it's been out for over 10 years now. So this has been talked to death and, well, it's a shitty fucking book, is the general consensus. Poorly written, the vampires aren't really vampires, they're weird fairy things that sparkle. And just in general, the characters are bland and boring and not that fucking good. And I agree with this statement generally. Now, when I first read this series, I was like 14, I do believe. Either 14 or 15. One of the two. So I was fairly young. I was very much the demographic of this book when this book came out, and I started reading it just before it like fucking exploded, and every single person was reading it in school. Absolutely everyone. Blind boy. Blind boy. Yeah, I know. So, but that's literally what happened. One day, everyone was reading this book. Every single person had fucking Twilight and was reading it. That's all you saw during reading class. Yes, we have a reading class where you just sit for half an hour and read books here in our junior highs. Everyone had this fucking book. Every single damn person. So this shit was super, super, super fucking popular. Easily the most popular book that I've really seen while in school. Because literally everyone had it all of a sudden. The only reason I started reading it is because a friend of mine started reading it and said she really liked it, so I picked up the first book and wound up reading through all 4 of them. So yeah, I have read all of these books. I wouldn't be making this review if I hadn't. Please don't, Ray. First thing I'll say is there's a lot of people who pass judgment on this book without having read it. Personally, you don't get to pass judgment on a book unless you've read it, or at least you don't get to pass serious judgment. Like, the kind of judgment that you can pass on a book you've never read is, it's not really my thing, it's not really my style. I don't really like that genre. My friend said it sucks. That you can say about a book you've never read, but you can't say that it is a god-awful book and that it fucking sucks and it's written poorly if you've never fucking read it. But once you've read it, you can trash on it all you fucking want. And, yeah, not very good. I mean, when I was 14, yeah, I really liked these when I was a 14-year-old. Why? Well, one, I love vampires. The minute you put vampires in a book, I'm gonna read your book, pretty much. So that was the thing that hooked me in, was the vampires. Even if they fucking sparkled, which pissed me off, even when I was 14, I hated the fucking sparkling thing. I still fucking hate the sparkling thing, and it pisses me off and makes me want to hurt the author. Vampires don't fucking sparkle. But, ignoring the sparkling, because I'm pretty good at ignoring the occasional thing in a book that I dislike, the book is not as bad as people say. Not even kind of. I'd say it's definitely meant for its demographic. It is meant for 14, 13, 15-year-olds demographically, minus the whole pregnancy thing. That's a little iffy. The pregnancy thing was fucking weird. Fucking weird, and should not have been part of the book. That was just weird and creepy, and I didn't like it. It was kind of disturbing. But, yeah, it's for 13, 14-year-olds. I think most 13, 14-year-olds would probably enjoy the book if they didn't already believe that it sucked because everyone told them it sucked. But once you hit, like, 16 and up, then this book is not worth reading, pretty much, once you're 16 and older, unless you want to read it purely for the sake of trashing on how badly written it is. Because it is. It's written badly. Very badly. I mean, I could probably flip through here, and in about 3 seconds I could probably find a spelling mistake, or a grammar mistake, or something. Because it's not a well-written book. It's not composed very well. It is a unique take on vampires, because I've never read another story where they fucking sparkle, but it's not a good kind of unique. I like good unique. I don't like bad unique. But it is good, again, for younger readers. And the other thing is, when you're 14, 15, you're not going to notice that it's not that well written. Because no 14-year-old, for the most part, is paying attention to how well-written a book is. I didn't give a shit how well-written books were when I was 14. I didn't know anyone who did give a shit about that. All we cared about was what the story was like, if it was interesting enough to hold our attention. Because that's one thing with this book, is it can hold your attention. If you can ignore the poorly writtenness of it, it will hold your attention pretty well. It's a quick read, I'd say. Even though they're like this thick, which is thicker than most young adult books, they're actually quick reads. Weirdly enough. But I would recommend reading them, at the very least, to trash on them more effectively. Because, again, don't trash on books unless you've read the books. And one thing I will say in favor of this, besides the fact that it's about vampires, sorta, which I like, and other things I will say about it, the cover is actually really unique for a cover for a book that is so heavily about romance. This is basically a young adult's romance novel, rather than just a young adult's novel. This might as well be that. But the cover is not what you'd expect to see on something that's basically a romance novel. Usually on romance novels you see a chick or a dude that's looking kind of attractive and sultry, or is possibly half naked. Or is riding off in the sunset, shoulders broad and shit. So, usually it's very obvious when you see a book with a cover like that, it's probably romance. But this, it's hands holding an apple. You don't know for sure that it's going to be about romance. Who knows God what it could be about. So the cover is definitely something I'd give it as a more unique thing about it that I'd actually kind of like to see more of. Especially when you go to like the Harley Quinn section, every single book is just brooding, half-naked guy or chick. Or a sultry, sexy, half-naked guy or chick. Every single cover is that. Even in the young adult section, most of the covers for romance in the young adult section is that. This was kind of a nice break. But that's just the fucking cover. The other thing I will give it is I like this book a hell of a lot more than I like other books. I would read this any day over The Hobbit, or The Lord of the Rings, or anything by Stephen King, really. I don't like Stephen King. I'm sorry, I really don't. And I would definitely read this over Harry Potter any day of the week. I would read this 40 fucking times over reading Harry Potter through again even once. Because, in my opinion, Harry Potter is god-fucking awful, and I don't even own it anymore because I got rid of it because the book pissed me off so much. Because it was so fucking horrible. So I will give it that this is better than Harry Potter, it's better than Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. By a long shot for me, anyway. And I'd rather read this than those books, easily. And that's kind of with my classification for books, is when it comes to books that aren't good, there's the unreadable, the I would never, ever, ever, ever read again, and the meh. This is a meh. Harry Potter is an I never, ever, ever, ever will read again. And The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings are in the not readable section. So is, the Sisters Brothers, I believe it's called. Something like that. Or the Brothers Sisters, the Sisters Brothers. It's called something like that. And it's an acclaimed book, and God, it's fucking terrible. It's in a not readable section. So this book is definitely readable. It's meh. It's not good. It is definitely bad. But it's a meh kind of bad. It's not like a save me, I'm dying, this book's going to kill me because it's so horrible kind of bad. It's just a meh kind of bad. And like I said, I would recommend reading it just purely for the sake of trashing on it better or knowing what the fuck it's about before you hate it. If you are going to read it, then try to put away all your preconceived notions about the book. Try to put away your biases about the book. Otherwise, they'll taint your reading experience completely. Especially if you're younger. And if you're 14, you'll probably actually enjoy this book somewhat. So. And, well, I'd assume most people know what the story's about by now. But Bella, Edward, Bella likes vampire dude. She moves to a new town. She's a really boring, bland person. And, well, love story ensues. And, nope, there's Jacob. Love triangle. Pick the guy. The guy, an eventual pregnancy occurs, and it's just creepy. And bunch of vampire shit. And werewolf stuff, too. And it's interesting. The trope that I really dislike, it does have the vampires versus werewolves trope for a little while, which I don't care for the whole, oh, vampires hate werewolves and werewolves hate vampires. I don't care for that trope. It's tired and old. Like, you were creative by making your vampires Fucking Sparkle. Why couldn't you be creative and make the werewolves and vampires be like best friends or something? Or symbiotic parasites to each other or something? Be creative! So, yeah, so I guess 10-minute rant about the Twilight books, even though the Twilight series has probably been done to death by now. But, yeah. Oh, and from the FurryCon, there was a little bit of a snippet of a paneling part on, Stephenie Meyers shitting on the Twilight book. Probably going to attach that to the end of this, so that'll probably tack on another few more minutes. But I guess one last thing on the author herself, Stephenie Meyers. She does have other books. One of the other ones that I actually own is The Host, and I will say, The Host was pretty decent. A lot better than this. A lot better than this. And I'd actually recommend reading The Host. I wouldn't say it's a good book, but definitely better than this. So, yeah. On a final note, fuck Harry Potter.
I did pretty good. I suggested that this was going to be 45 minutes long for my first panel. Cool. Stephenie Meyer is just stupid. I know that's not constructive, but she's just stupid. She does tons of adjectives that are unnecessary. She likes telling people rather than showing people with her words. Her characters are weak and single-dimensional. She has a strange idea of what, because believe it or not, Stephenie Meyers' work was I'm sure you'll actually all believe this, was the foundation for 50 Shades of Grey, because of the rough sex scene in whatever that freaking movie was. That was the foundation.
50 Shades is technically a fan fiction.
With different names, exactly. It's a bad fan fiction.
I won't read it.
I won't either. But, she didn't, a lot of people that do stuff like that, they haven't researched things properly, and they're just like, oh, I'm going to say this because this is what I think it is. And, it ends up being a very weak form of literature. And yeah, it's great for, the little tweens that are like, oh my god, I love vampires and sparkly werewolves, yay! And yeah, it got a lot of girls into reading, but it also has spawned a lot of stupidity. Teen guy that almost hits Bella with the truck. Yeah, Stephenie Meyers. The other thing that I really hated about her was she's like, yeah, I wrote this because my husband wasn't satisfying me. I'm like, really? You wrote this because your husband wasn't cutting it in bed? Really? That was apparently part of her motivation in an interview. I'm like, oh, please, come up with a better reason. Lie. You're a writer. You should be able to lie.